In a 2019 article by the Congressional Research Service, it states that about 4.4 million acres were burned in the year 2019 compared to the 8.8 million acres burned in the year 2018. This causes concern for the 2020 fire season because it might cause a more intense and more acres burned. As some of you know, I'm a wildland firefighter in the summers, and I think it's good to be able to learn more about wildfires. Today, I will be speaking about how wildfires affect the ecosystem and everything within the ecosystem. First, I will be talking about how the water supply, water tributaries, and the water cycle are affected during wildfires. The next point I'll be covering is how the soil is affected during wildfires. And last, I will be talking about how plant and animal wildlife are affected during wildfires. So let's move into how water is affected during wildfires. According to the USDA and Forest Service in an article in 2005, the hydrologic cycle is the thing about water that is most affected during a wildfire. Simply put, the hydrologic cycle is the process and pathways by which water is circulated from land and water bodies to the atmosphere and back again. There are 5 parts to the hydrologic cycle, including interception, infiltration, evapotranspiration, soil moisture storage, and overland flow of water into tributaries. So let's break those down. Interception is the ability of a canopy or litter to intercept precipitation coming into the ecosystem. And this is affected by a fire because it burns the canopy and litter, causing little to no interception. The next is infiltration. Infiltration is the ability of water to soak into the soil, and this is affected by a wildfire because it causes the soil to become more dense and it soaks up less water. Third is evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration is the evaporation in transpiring plants. When a fire burns through, it burns the plants and trees and evaporates all the water within them, and this is counted as a water loss in the ecosystem. Fourth is soil moisture storage. Soil moisture storage is fairly simple. It is the ability of the soil to hold moisture. And when a fire burns through, it pulls all the moisture out of the soil. The last one is overland flow of water into tributaries. Overland flow of water into tributaries is as precipitation falls, it will run over land into tributaries such as lakes, ponds, creeks, and it can pull ash and contaminants into the tributaries and affect the ecosystem. So as the water is affected in a huge way, so are the soils. According to the USDA and Forest Service in an article in 2005, as the fire burns over, the biological, chemical, and physical properties of the soil are affected. There are organic binders in the soil that make the soil soft and porous, and as a fire burns over, it combusts these organic binders and causes the soil to become more compact and more dense. This heightens runoff and it makes erosion faster. It heightens the state of erosion in an area that is burned compared to an area that has not burned. There are also, after a fire has burned through, the carbon and nitrogen is deposited from the burned plants to the soil, making it more fertile for the next generation to grow. As the soil is affected, the last part of the ecosystem that is affected is plant and animal wildlife. Plant and animal wildlife are affected in many ways during and after a wildfire. According to Yvonne Barkley at Idaho State University, they are affected in many ways, such as their essential needs changing, they're forced to migrate, and it even can cause mortality. She states that as a fire is ablaze in an ecosystem, it forces animals to migrate out of their natural habitat. And this can cause their water source to change, this can cause their food source to change, and their shelter to change, and they're forced to adapt. In most cases, there are mortality rates in fires because the animals either refuse to migrate or simply do not have time to. A good example of wildlife regeneration in plants is the burning of a conifer forest. Conifers, the cones of a conifer need high heat to open their cones and spit the seeds to the ground to replant the forest for a new generation and a healthier ecosystem. There are many effects that wildfires have on ecosystems. As we conclude today, I covered the effects that a wildfire can have on the water tributaries and water cycle in an ecosystem. I covered the effects that it has on soil and the organic binders in the soil, and I covered how it affects plant and animal wildlife in an ecosystem. Thank you all for coming and learning more about wildfires with me.
Yay.